Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing our last bit of work in the API before moving on to our front end. Today's video we're going to be moving our task completion code. We're going to be moving it over to use the database that we've actually already created. And just like the task, we're going to just start moving things over. So first thing we're going to do is check out a branch. Move task completion to use DB, and let's go and get our tests actually running. So let's go into our API and then npm run test. Npm test, we'll see it's using our test database, and we've got all these skipped processes. So let's come into our test itself and we'll see everywhere where it says only, let's actually remove all of them. So we should see a lot of failures now. All right, get completed with responding to with a 404. And what we're gonna do is let's also come right in here and we're gonna start getting rid of things. So completion, all of these are actually commented out currently, and so we're going to uncomment them. So this is our get all completed tasks for the task UID. What we'll do for this is we will check that the task actually exists, and if there is no task, we will respond with a 404. So that's what this code's doing here. And then if there is a task, then we're going to actually go and get those completions. Now we're going to see this actually should pass this now. It should respond with a 200 and an empty array. So we're actually still getting a 404 here, and that's because this UID needs to be different. We're gonna call this, we'll call it, this will be the task UID. So this will be good here. We're gonna call it, we're gonna use this as the task UID. And that looks good. And you know what? We are going to we're going to comment out a lot of these tests, and as we move down, we'll uncomment them. So we have a completed. We should get a 404 and then a 200. Let's comment this out and make sure that we're getting a 404 as expected here. So we run this test. Okay, so this is actually invalid input syntax for type UID. That's interesting here. Invalid input syntax. We'll see if this is actually taking a long time, or maybe we're just possibly not handling this error correctly. It sure does seem though that it's just not, it's potentially not even making it to this code. So what we can actually do is try this. And we're going to do a catch here. And let's just go ahead and we'll log out our error. So we'll just do a let task, and we'll assign that. This is a curious one. input invalid input syntax for type UUID. So it seems that it just is not like the one coming over. So let's just try to get our tasks actually. We'll use a real when. So this is a non-existent task UID. So we're just gonna go in here, and we know our task 1 UID was deleted, and let's see if we're actually still getting the same error or not. So our error is passing, and that's when our UID shape is something that we just don't expect. So if we just did something like this, task UID of 1, 2, 3 every time, yeah, I mean, it's possible we can do one of these numbers if no task, and you know, this isn't terrible. What we can do is we can air this out. So let task and we will, if we have no task, we'll air it out. And then from here, we are going to get all the task completions with that ID. So we're gonna take a very similar path here, and we are going to do const task completions, and then we are going to do our task completion entity, and we are actually going to search when our task completion, and let's double check in our entity. So we have this task UID. Task UID, and then we're going to get many, and we're not going to filter them out. We're just going to respond with everything. So completions, yes, we want to respond with everything here. So all our tests are passing, and our next one should actually return an empty array. Our last one was just checking a 404. Now we're checking an empty array. So this is expecting a 200 here, and instead we are getting this because we're not using the correct. So we're going task 2 UID plus task. So this is the correct route. Okay, so this test is now passing. Let's come to our next guy, and so this is task UID. Let's fix our route before we move on. This is going to be sending a 404 because we haven't even handled this post yet. Task UID we would expect to be task2.uid. So this is actually creating a task completion. So let's go ahead into our other post, and we'll copy over some of the logic within how we insert these. So we'll copy this logic in. We should have some validation on this, and so that's already good news. We have this big large validation here. So let's just do a double take though. So we've got our completed at string, so we're validating that. We're validating here. Now we're checking if the task is actually, if the task actually exists. Then we're doing some, we're getting all the existing completions and doing some more validation. And then here, we're actually doing the insertion. And so what we'll do is, instead of having this insertion like this, we'll actually, so we have task completion entity. So this is what we want to actually insert. Let's first also make sure that this is an async function. If I can type. And what we'll actually also do is we'll come up here and we'll grab some of this. Um, so this is this 404. We actually can just copy this and very similarly get this task. And here's our completions. So this is going to get all the completions. We do not need to, oh, okay, we do. So we're going to get our task completions and we're checking if we can find any in here. So we know everyone has the same task UID, but we want to check this complete let string. So that's that. So now this result doesn't seems, okay, this is being used. And the way that we can see this is, oh, we also have, when we posted in that other one, we'll see that we have this response. And so we're gonna kind of just use that same thing and see, so we'll remove this. We're inserting here, we're gonna still actually use this response. So our response is going to really be this as well as what comes over in this raw. So this, we can still keep this this entity, but this is actually how we get our UID. So this is actually the task UID here, or this is where we're going to get the UID for the task itself. And so we'll see what's going to actually come back here. So we're posting and we are receiving a 404. So I'll be curious to see where that 404 is actually coming from. Because so we're posting, we're expecting a 201, we're getting a 404. So what we can do is we'll do some logging out and we'll say, oh, and it's a 404, not a 400. So that's also interesting. So we have this post, we have this task UID, this is doing all this validation. And it seems like we are, okay, this is getting the task UID and that looks correct. Our only 404 in here is actually here. So we're gonna say task not found. And let's see if that's actually what is being returned. Okay, so task is not found. And let's also check our task UID using UID. So let's make sure that we're using a valid UID. Okay, so this is an actual object instead of, interesting. So this is, we should be dereferencing this UID. So that's quite interesting. Let's actually take this object here and let's log it out by itself. And we should be able to see what is in this, what's in this actual object instead of just seeing object. Okay, we're just seeing object, which would mean that maybe we are passing object as the actual string. And would you look at that? That's exactly what we're doing. So I'm guessing this is going to pass now. Or is there a problem with our insertion? Looks like we probably have a problem with our insertion now. So let's come back in, we'll remove these logs. And let's actually see what are we passing through here. So we have this get many, and we would have returned early if we had a problem. And so it seems like right here is where we're getting this error. So we're attempting to write, and then we'll do a done write. Let's see what this returns. Attempting to write. And it just never writes. Okay, invalid input syntax for type UUID1. Oh, because we're trying to actually insert this guy here, and the UID is being used, so we definitely don't want that. Okay, that's great. So now our tests are passing. Let's get rid of these guys too, so we no longer have any of these types of errors. So our test is now passing, and so let's go ahead and move back to our tests, and let's continue to comment out. So we've got another post. We're gonna have to fix task 2 UID. We'll check that this validation error is passing here. Yes. Let's check that this guy here, task 2 UID. Okay, so this is, we should be expecting the date is already completed, and we're actually coming back with a 201. So that code is right here, and we can remove these guys, and you know, another thing we want to make sure that we're doing is we are in our before our all, we are actually clearing everything from our task completion entity as well. We want to make sure that we're doing that. Okay, so we're getting a 400 that is saying the date is already completed. So that means we're actually failing at this. So let's see what we are getting for our task completions, as well as let's see what we're sending over. So our task completions has nothing in it, and we are sending over this guy, which is very interesting. So we're finding something. This should be, let's just do a console log of what is actually coming back from this. We really should be expecting undefined every time here. So we're getting undefined, and somehow we're coming back with this date is already completed field. Is on a day that is already completed. So let's come down, and perhaps we are not saving something. So we are, so this would mean to me that if we look here, we see that we're expecting, in fact, before we run our next test, we are actually in our test database, and let's do an inspection. So we have something on 121, and it's sending something on 121. Oh, but would you look at this though? Our task UID is not being set. So we have these completions. Really, this should be a non-null. This should be a non-null field, and yet we're saving completions, and we're getting into some trouble here. So I think what we really should be doing now is let's go into our entities, and we want to make sure that not null. So this would be entity inheritance, potentially embedded entities. All right, let's go in, and maybe our docs can help us. So if we go to our task completion entity, so this is saying this is a string. Nullable is false. So we've been allowing our task to be false, and we definitely don't want that to to be true. So let's go and we are going to run some migrations. So npm run migration generate task should be non-nullable. So we should see okay, there we go. Let's pull this into our migrations and we will run, let's look at our package. This is on our database. So by default, we are providing so if I run this, I actually don't think, I think this is not going to run at all. Oh, well, I was wrong. So let's see if this was ran here. No, this ran in our, so what we want to actually do is, so this was using our database and this was using our config, and apparently somewhere in our environment variables, we want to run this on our test database. So it's possible, so npm run docker compose, it's possible that we just have this here. So we could actually turn this and make this test and run this. This should run. Okay, it's complaining because we already have problems in our test database. It's complaining that we have two task UIDs that are null, and how can it do this migration if that's the case? So we just cleared those out. Now we migrated. We'll come back in here and make our default back to Postgres. And now we should be getting an error when we run our tests that actually says that what we expect. We're getting undefined. Well, we shouldn't even be allowed to post. So we're getting another failure here. Okay, null value in task in column task UID of relation violates non-null. And so that's actually what we want here. So let's go in, and this is actually validating. It's in our post, it's our post logic, which is where we're at. So this is saying that our task UID is null. I have a feeling, though, we really should be passing in the task itself. Yeah. So this is something that we're going to have to take a look at, kind of, because we don't want to have to pass in the entire full task in order to insert. We should just be able to pass the UID and it can reference. So we'll put another to do. Why do we need the full task object here? And then we'll continue. Passing task UID should be enough. Okay, so there's our test passing, and we'll have to come and clean those up, but I want us to get to the front end, and then we'll come back to the API once our front end's working, and we'll do some more work there. Okay, so task 2 UID, Ooga Booga should be responding with the 400. It's invalidate, yes. Now we've got task 2 UID. And we're just going to keep commenting. I think quite a few of these are going to be similar. So this is still sending a post. Okay, and now here is a get. And the next one coming up is a delete. So that'll actually be a new method. And look at this, we're actually almost done here too. So it's nice that we have these tests already written for us, so we actually can be pretty confident in what we're doing. So we'll change both of these around. Okay, and we know that this is gonna, yeah, we knew that this was gonna return a 404 because we've got this commented out right here. So what we'll do here is first we're gonna find our task, and we'll come back up right here and we'll copy this over. We really should be not duplicating this, but we'll do that. We'll fix this soon, potentially just start using a service. So this is trying to find the task completion here. So we're gonna actually do a very similar thing here. We're gonna do await this guy. This is task completion entity and task completion. And then it's our task completion UID. Except this guy is, this is going to be our completion UID. Oh, it's completed UID. And if we don't get one of those, we'll respond with a 404. This actually does our deleting. So we'll come in here and just verify how to do this again. And we were responding with it's interesting, we were actually responding with the node that we actually had just deleted, which really just doesn't make sense at all. I feel like when we respond back, we should just be sending back a 201. And let's see where we delete our task UID. What are we? Yeah, we're just sending. We're not sending back anything else from there. So this is going to be task completion entity, and we'll call that we have the UID. This is the completed UID. And so we'll see if we are passing here. Awesome. So we're passing this, and I think we have one more test left to uncomment. All right, awesome. So all tests are passing. That's going to be it for today's video. What we've got now is a fully functioning API. We're migrated up using our schemas. We are actually going to be, in our next video, creating our front end, our React app. So we'll get a very basic UI next video, just get things installed, setting up our additional service that's going to be front end, and yeah, we'll jump into there, and then we'll be able to actually start using our API immediately, and really excited for that. We'll come back here to our API. We're going to be refactoring things. I've got quite a few to-do lists littered around still, but that's what makes things fun too. Just trying to clean up and stuff like that. So we'll see you in the next video.